Discover the incredible journey, a millionaire's heartwarming quest for a mother for his children. Jack Thompson stood in the middle of his immaculate kitchen, the smell of burnt toast permeating the air. Not the typical start to a day for a self-made millionaire, but mornings were now a battlefield. He glanced at Emma, Max, and little Lily, each lost in their own world of breakfast and scattered toys, their innocent faces framed by a sea of Kick cereal. The ache of longing pulsed through the room, heavier than the rare-cut steaks in his freezer. It was as if each child craved not just a meal or a father's love, but a maternal figure to fill the void left by their mother, a truth that hung silently like a black cloud over their lives. School drop-off had become a circus act. Jack rushed through the morning routine, tying shoelaces, packing lunchboxes, squeezing out gentle "I love yous." Each goodbye felt incomplete, echoing with the weight of their lost family bond. What once felt like mere activity now felt like an emotional labyrinth. Inside him, despair swirled as wildly as the tornadoes he often joked about with his friends. Could he truly provide what his children needed? Could he be their everything, while also finding someone to fulfill the role of mother? His evenings were filled with frantic soccer games and chaotic bedtime stories where Jack, still in his tailored suit, fought to become a hero to his children. Every "once upon a time" was tinged with sadness, each cozy cuddle left an imprint of missing warmth that only a mother's love could provide. Jack's wealth felt meaningless against this backdrop of longing and loss. He turned to online dating, hoping to find someone who could step into a role that felt both inviting and intimidating. The women he met were skeptical, questioning how a man like him, wealthy yet vulnerable, found himself desperately navigating the choppy waters of single parenthood. While other mothers eyed him with suspicion, Jack could only offer a shaky smile, a facade of confidence hiding deeper fears. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And that's when he met Sarah, a kind-hearted waitress with a contagious laugh and a warmth that seeped into his soul. Their conversations crackled like summer fireworks, illuminating nights that bled into mornings. Yet, as a millionaire, Jack found himself caught in a social whirlwind that shook the very foundation of their budding love. Friends whispered behind their champagne flutes, arguing he could do better, that Sarah was beneath his stature, a slip of a girl from a small town who brought no financial benefits to the table. He felt it whenever they gathered, those glances laced with judgment. They analyzed his every move, urging him to play by their rules, yet his heart whispered differently. Faced with the crisis of an unexpected financial scrutiny, Jack's world threatened to spiral, unraveling the core of his being and raising questions that cut deep. Would his children delight in the safety of their lavish lifestyle, or would they thrive in the raw affection that Sarah offered, one that promised to fill their home with laughter rather than exclusivity? As Jack stood among rising tension, holding both love and fear, it became clear, a choice lurked in the shadows, one that could redefine not only his fate but that of his children. Would they find a way to embrace the true meaning of family, or would the expectations of society force them into a gilded cage? Jack stood outside the children's school, tapping his fingers nervously against the steering wheel. The schoolyard buzzed with laughter and chatter, parents catching up while children dashed towards one another, squealing with joy. Yet there he was, a solitary figure amidst the gathering throngs, his heart a mixture of anxiety and longing. Maybe it was the way Sarah's laughter haunted his mind, or the way she had looked that last evening, with her hair cascading around her shoulders like rays of sunshine. He remembered her encouragement, how she told him he could be both a father and an open-hearted man, unafraid to seek happiness, no matter the whispers of those around him. As Emma, Max, and Lily tumbled into the car, their spirits seemed to cling onto his own heart. The familiar warmth flooded over him again as he turned to them, masking his uncertainties behind a smile. But inside, doubt gnawed at him. "Dad, can we stop for ice cream on our way home?" Emma piped up, her bright blue eyes wide with hope. "Of course," he responded, allowing a flicker of joy to spark within him. In moments like these, he hoped maybe he could brush aside his worries. Maybe if he provided them simple pleasures, they would forget what was missing. As they drove, laughter filled the car. The kids bickered about toppings, all while Jack found solace in their joy, yet the deeper truth was tangled in his mind. They were missing something greater, someone to share their joys, not just drip them with sweetness but soak in their giggles and wipe away their tears. Later that night, while the children settled into bed, Jack laid awake, staring at the ceiling. With images of Sarah dancing behind his eyelids, he felt the weight of the societal expectations that loomed large. His phone buzzed beside him, a message from Tyler, a close friend. "Why don't you just let her go? You can have anyone you want. Don't waste your time." Jack's heart sank at the thought. He didn't want just anyone. He wanted Sarah. But how could he pursue her when whispers clouded their connection? As if in reply, a soft knock on his door shattered the night. It was Emma, her tiny figure silhouetted against the hallway light. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart?" he whispered. "Can you tell us a story?" Smiling, he moved to sit beside her. "Of course. What story do you want?" "About a knight and a princess." She grinned, her eyes gleaming with excitement. This was his moment. He launched into a tale infused with adventure and love, where a knight searched for a lost princess, who many said wasn't worthy of his quest. Yet, as he spun the tale, he couldn't help but reflect on his own life. Maybe finding the right path wasn't about others' opinions but about understanding what truly mattered: love, connection, and family. As his voice filled the room with magic, Jack felt something shift within him. The heartache he had carried began to lift, if only slightly. That's when he realized he needed to fight for what felt right, not what looked right. In the dim light, a flicker of determination sparked in his heart. Tomorrow, he would reach out to Sarah again, gather the courage to acknowledge their bond, regardless of judgment. But as fatigue pulled at his eyelids, a thought stopped him cold. Would Sarah even want him back after everything? What if her laughter turned to pity? Questions echoed in the quiet night, leaving him restless, eager for answers yet tinged with fear. Could love find a way amidst the chaos of expectations? Jack knew that the coming days would test him more than ever. And with every moment that passed, he felt the weight of that decision settle over him. Could he really change the direction of his family's life? Would they take that leap into the unknown together? Tomorrow held secrets he couldn't yet understand, and the resolve to unearth them beckoned him forward. The sun rose the next morning with a reluctant glow, slashing through the curtains of Jack's bedroom. He stirred, still caught in the haze of his dreams and yesterdays. As the reality of his unresolved feelings began to settle in his mind, he rubbed a hand down his face and glanced out the window. The world was waking up anew, yet he felt tethered to yesterday's uncertainties. Once breakfast finished and the kids were off to school, Jack sank into the couch, phone in hand. He stared at the screen for what felt like hours, battling with himself over whether he should send that text to Sarah. Just a simple hello? Or maybe a deeper apology for the silence? His heart raced as a sense of urgency swelled within him. He typed a greeting and quickly deleted it. Typed another, deleted again. "Why am I so afraid?" he muttered aloud, clenching his fists in frustration. He was a dad, for goodness sake, why was stepping into a risk-filled territory of love so daunting? His thoughts were interrupted by Lily, who burst through the front door, her face aglow. "Daddy! Daddy! You won't believe what Mrs. Thompson said." Jack's heart softened immediately. He pulled her in for a hug. "What did she say, Cupcake?" "She said we're going to have a science fair. And I want to do my project on space." Her eyes sparkled like stars. That's amazing. You could build a rocket out of soda bottles, Jack encouraged, feeling his spirits lift. Yeah. And I want you to help me, she declared, bouncing on her toes. Her excitement fueled his resolve. He needed to focus on the good moments he could build on. As he poured juice into a glass, his phone buzzed again, Tyler's name flashing on the screen. Jack took a breath and answered, confusion still clawing at his insides. Hey, Jack. Just checking in. Are you really going to chase down your feelings? After what happened? Yeah, I think I am, Jack replied, surprising even himself as the words rolled off his tongue. He could literally feel the air getting lighter. That's cool. Just remember, you can't play it safe forever. You deserve happiness, too. Jack nodded, although Tyler couldn't see him. The weight of that statement wrapped around him. As he hung up, something inside him cracked open. I deserve happiness, he whispered to the emptiness. Reassured by this newfound courage, he began crafting another message, his fingers flying across the screen. Hey, Sarah. It's Jack. I've been thinking about you a lot. All I want is to talk. The message sent, Jack felt a quick flush of panic. What if she ignored him? What if she thought he was just a fool for reaching out? He braced himself, heart thumping, waiting for a reply. That evening, as he prepared dinner, a huge storm rolled in. The windows rattled with every clap of thunder. It felt like the world outside mirrored the chaos in his heart. He focused on the sound of children's laughter, reminding himself of who was really important here. But as he stirred the pasta sauce, anticipation thrummed through him, electric and alive. Just then, his phone chimed, cutting through the storm's roar. Jack's heart leapt into his throat. He wiped his hands on a towel and grabbed it. One message, from Sarah. Reading her reply, Jack felt a mix of hope and dread sizzle in his stomach. She had responded. But the words themselves felt weighty and layered, containing both promise and uncertainty. Jack, can we meet? I need to talk. There's something we must discuss. He stared at the screen, realizing that everything was about to change, not just for him, but also for his kids. What lay ahead was unpredictable, the path unclear. But one thing was certain, honesty, connection, and courage were finally within his reach. Would they be enough? With a deep breath, Jack pondered the meeting ahead. Would they find a way through the tangled mess or risk it all, seeking a future unplayed? The answer clung just out of reach, waiting for him to take the plunge. As the storm continued to rumble outside, Jack's mind raced far beyond the safety of his kitchen. He could hardly focus on the boiling pasta or the vibrant smell of garlic and basil that danced around the room. All he could think about was Sarah's message, the invitation hanging in the air like the charged atmosphere before a lightning strike. He finished cooking mechanically, serving the kids their dinners with a smile plastered on his face, though his stomach churned with nerves. They chattered about their day, Lily sharing her science project plans while her brother, Ethan, recounted his soccer game. Everything seemed perfect, yet Jack felt a palpable tension in the air. Dad, you okay? Ethan asked, tilting his head with concern that was almost wise for an 8-year-old. Jack nodded, forcing a grin. Yeah, just thinking. You know how it is. The truth was, he wasn't just thinking. He was preparing, mentally rehearsing the conversation with Sarah, imagining all that could go right and all that could go wrong. Could their past hold enough weight to pull them through? Were they strong enough to reshape their connection into something beautiful? After dinner, as the kids washed up, he took a moment alone in the living room, his heart thudding against his chest in anticipation. The storm had begun to ease, the lightning replaced with a gentle drizzle. He snagged a quick glance out the window. Nature calmed, but his heart raged in a conflicting dance. Every second that passed tugged at him. What would he say to Sarah? Would he express how much he missed her? Or would he dance around the real feelings, afraid of overwhelming her once more? Just then, a soft knock broke his thoughts. Lily peeked in. "Daddy, can you help me with my rocket project?" Jack's heart melted. "Of course. Where do we start?" Her enthusiasm filled the room, making it hard to hold on to his swirling doubts. They gathered supplies, soda bottles, cardboard, tape. As they built together, he couldn't help but think about building something with Sarah too. Could they rebuild? Could they create a future that wouldn't just float but soar? With every piece of the rocket taking shape, he could feel his confidence rising. They laughed, and he reveled in the joy of the moment, delighting that his children were unaware of the storm brewing in their dad's heart. Their unwavering belief in him buoyed his spirit, and when they stepped back to admire their work, Jack felt a flicker of hope. Later that night, after hugs and bedtime stories, Jack returned to the couch. The kids were finally asleep, and the house was filled with an all-encompassing silence. He reached for his phone again, fingers hovering over Sarah's name. What if she didn't want to meet? What if she arrived, and their history turned into wallpaper but one that screamed of all their past failures? His thumb shook slightly as it rested on the screen. Before he could overthink, he sent a quick reply. "I'm here." When and where? His heart thundered as he hit send, uncertainty washing over him in waves. The waiting seemed to stretch painfully, the question of whether she would respond gnawing away at the edges of his resolve. But as the minutes ticked by, a sense of peace settled over him. He had taken the plunge, now it was time for the waters to settle and show him what lay beneath the surface. Then, almost like the storm readying to strike again, his phone buzzed. "Tomorrow at noon? The cafe by the park." As he read her message, the knot tightened in his stomach again. He was about to meet the woman he hadn't stopped loving, the woman who held countless memories that etched into his heart. Jack took a deep breath, knowing that tomorrow could alter everything his family knew or lead them down a new path, one filled with unknowns. The question lingered in his mind: could he handle the truths they both needed to confront? He spent the night tossing and turning, sleep evading him, and the weight of what tomorrow could bring hung heavy in the air. With dawn still dark, Jack stared out his window, the storm finally cleared. And yet, the real tempest within him churned dangerously. Would he step forward into the light, or retreat back into the safety of silence? Only the morning would tell. The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. Jack stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes, yet his mind was far from the bubbles and suds. It was consumed by the looming meeting with Sarah. There was a flutter in his stomach that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. He wiped his hands dry and looked out the window. Kids were riding their bikes, the laughter ringing out like music through the air. It reminded him of happier days, days when he and Sarah had a breeze-filled park picnic or chased after their first puppy. Could they ever find that joy again? The thought flickered like a candle under a gust of wind, fragile and uncertain. His attention snapped back to the kids as they padded into the kitchen, their faces still sleepy but brightening at the sight of him. "Good morning, Dad." Lily chimed, her voice infused with girlish cheer. Ethan, rubbing his eyes, mumbled a greeting. "Morning, you two. Who's ready for pancakes?" Jack said, masking his inner turmoil with a smile. As he poured the batter onto the skillet, the sizzle brought him a momentary calm, the familiar rhythm grounding him in the present. "Can we have chocolate chips?" Ethan asked, bouncing on his toes. "Absolutely. The more, the merrier." Jack laughed, finally feeling a bit of warmth as he flipped the pancakes. As they ate together, the kitchen buzzed with chatter about school and stories from Ethan's soccer game. Yet, with each bite he took, Jack was aware of the clock ticking, each minute bringing him closer to the cafe. The kids finished breakfast and scampered off to play, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts again. He grabbed his phone, glancing at it for the 100th time. No new messages. He wondered if Sarah was equally anxious. He decided to put on a brave face, even if it felt painted on. He wanted to walk into that cafe with confidence. With a sense of urgency, he grabbed his jacket and pulled it over his shoulders, the fabric suddenly feeling like a weight. "All right, Jack, you can do this," he murmured to himself while looking in the mirror. "Think about the kids." His reflection stared back, a mixture of determination and uncertainty layered over it. The cafe came into view, a cozy little place nestled at the park's edge. He parked and took a deep breath, fiddling with the buttons on his jacket as he stepped out. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around him, and for a moment, it felt like home. He walked inside, glancing around for Sarah. She wasn't there yet. He took a booth by the window, trying to calm his nerves by people watching. Families strolled by, children laughing, a couple feeding ducks. All of it tugged at his heart. How could he explain to Sarah what he wanted? Time seemed to stretch endlessly until finally, the door swung open, and there she was. Sarah stood at the entrance, looking both familiar and foreign. Her hair cascaded in waves, and the sunlight framed her figure, highlighting the years they had both lived without each other. Jack's heart raced at the sight of her. Would their connection spark back to life, or would they stand like strangers trapped in memories? She spotted him and their eyes locked. She smiled, but it felt tinged with hesitation, reflecting the uncertainty swirling in both their hearts. As Sarah walked over, Jack's breath caught in his throat. The moment he had been waiting for after all the doubts and fears was finally here. "Hey, Jack," she said softly as she slid into the booth across from him. "Hi, Sarah," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The air hummed with tension, the questions hanging like clouds before a storm. Would they uncover the truths? Could they reshape their old bond? As the waitress approached, Jack knew they had some heavy conversations ahead. He glanced at Sarah, her eyes searching his, mirroring his own fears. Would they confront the emotional wreckage surrounding them, or would they falter under its weight? "Let us order," he suggested, trying to break the ice. But the real journey was just beginning, and with it came the uncertainty of where it would lead. The waitress handed them menus with a cheerful smile, her presence a small reprieve from the storm brewing between Jack and Sarah. He could hear the clinking of cups and the gentle hum of conversations all around, but their little booth felt suspended in a different world entirely, one filled with unspoken words and palpable tension. Jack fidgeted with the corner of his menu, searching for something safe to say. "So, how have you been?" he ventured, his voice shaky. "Busy," Sarah replied, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup. "Work has been a whirlwind." The weight of her words sunk in. Jack knew too well how the demands of life could sweep someone away. "Yeah, same here. The kids keep me on my toes." There was a flicker of warmth at the mention of Lily and Ethan, a part of him hoping it would bridge the gap between them. "I can only imagine. They must be so big now." She smiled, and for a moment, the softness in her eyes took Jack back to days filled with laughter and love. Memories of them sharing silly jokes while tucking the children into bed floated in his mind. "Yeah, they really are. Lily just learned to ride her bike without training wheels." It was like her own personal triumph. Jack's heart swelled with pride, and he felt a surge of energy in sharing those moments with her. "And Ethan's getting ready for the soccer finals next week. I remember when they were just little ones." Sarah's voice softened, and Jack saw a flicker of nostalgia dance in her gaze. "Time goes by so fast." "Yeah." Jack leaned in, sensing an opening. "Sometimes I wish I could just freeze those moments, you know?" There was a hint of vulnerability in Sarah's expression, but it was quickly masked by an undercurrent of doubt. "It's hard to think about what we used to have, Jack. Things are different now." He felt a lump form in his throat. "I know they are. But does that mean we can't talk about it? About the us that was?" The question hung heavy in the air, reverberating with the weight of their shared history. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. Shadows crossed her face, and he could see the struggle within her. "It's not that easy." "Nothing worth having ever is," he replied, feeling emboldened. "We deserve to explore this, Sarah. To see if we can still find something that feels right." With that, the silence stretched between them, both of them grappling with the possibility that they could redefine their lives together. Jack's heart raced. He felt like he was standing on the precipice, ready to leap into unknown waters. Was this their chance? "Jack," she started, and for a moment, Jack held his breath, hoping for light to shine through the uncertainty. But just then, the door swung open, and a gust of wind blew through the cafe, drawing their attention. A small boy stumbled inside, his cheeks flushed, excitement radiating from him as he shouted to his parents that he'd seen a puppy outside. Laughter erupted in the cafe as the boy's joy echoed, momentarily breaking the tension. Jack turned back to Sarah, his heart pounding with a chaotic mixture of hope and dread. "What if we could create that joy again, together?" he ventured, his eyes locking onto hers, searching for a flicker of hope. But before Sarah could respond, her phone chimed quietly on the table. The moment stretched long, punctuated by the reality of their lives waiting outside this tiny booth. Would she answer it? Would they turn back to the lives they were living instead of this moment suspended in potential? Jack's heart sank. The moment teetered on the edge, and he held his breath, every second feeling crucial. Could they choose to leap together, or was this just another instance where they would let the world pull them apart? Sarah hesitated, her phone vibrating softly against the wooden table. The sound pulled her attention away from Jack, and he felt the weight of that moment slip through his fingers like grains of sand. He wasn't ready for her to answer. Not now. Not when they were finally starting to tiptoe back into each other's lives. She glanced at the screen, and Jack could see the conflict etched on her face. The light from the phone illuminated her features, casting a soft glow that reminded him of the first time he saw her, all those years ago, bright, full of possibilities, and free from the shadows that now lingered between them. "Just give me a second," she said, her voice distant as she picked up the phone. She stood up, stepping away to take the call, and Jack was left alone in the booth, watching as she walked toward the back of the cafe. He could see her shoulders tense, the way her body language shifted as she slipped into another world. With each passing second, Jack's heart thudded louder. Memories of their truest moments swirled around him, their laughter, the connection that felt so easy, so natural. He couldn't help but think about the life they had dreamed of together, a life that had since dismantled under the pressure of reality. A couple at a nearby table shared a moment of tenderness, their hands interlaced over a coffee cup, and he felt a sharp pang of longing for what he once had. He thought about that puppy the little boy had spotted outside. The innocent joy that filled the cafe reminded him of how fleeting happiness could be. He turned his gaze back to Sarah, who was still on the phone, her expression far removed from the spark of hope he had seen earlier. She looked serious. Maybe even worried. He wondered what could be so important. What kind of reality awaited her on the other end of that call? Was it just work? Or was it something deeper, something more personal? A swirl of insecurities and fears filled him. What if she was being pulled back into the life they promised to leave behind? The waitress returned, filling their cups. "Is everything all right?" she asked, glancing at the table where Sarah had just been, her brow slightly furrowed. Jack forced a smile, even though it felt tight against his nerves. "Yeah, we're just catching up after a while." "Good luck with that. It's always nice to reconnect." She winked before moving to another table. Reconnection. The word lingered in the air like a soft serenade. He picked up the coffee, taking a short sip, needing the warmth to seep into his veins. Every ounce of him wanted to reach out, to pull Sarah back into this moment where they still held a chance. But as he watched her from a distance, he felt the distance grow a canyon of uncertainty. What if they couldn't bridge that gap? What if this was just a coffee date that would end like countless others, merely marking time instead of reigniting old flames? She finally hung up, and Jack's heart leaped. She walked back toward him, visibly shaken, her face betraying something he could only hope wasn't disappointment. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the world around them dulled. "Jack, we need to talk," she started, her voice trembling. "What is it?" he asked, fear creeping into the edges of his mind at the thought of more conflict. But somehow, he sensed the tension could turn towards a moment of honesty. Before she could respond, the room buzzed with the sound of a new group entering the cafe, laughter spilling in, a little boy running in, announcing with glee that he had found more puppies outside. Jack couldn't help but feel a swell of hope at the simplicity of joy. Could this be their moment? He leaned forward, his heart racing with an unspoken wish. "Sarah, whatever it is, let us figure it out. I believe we can still start again," he said, bravely reaching for the thread of connection desperately hanging in the air between them. She bit her lip, eyes darting away momentarily as though trapped in thought. And then, the most alarming question wedged into their reunion hung there like a heavy curtain. What if everything we are trying to build is already set to unravel? Jack met her gaze, each moment filling with potential, the possibilities swirling around them like distant echoes of things left unsaid. The air thickened, heavy with curiosity and resolve. Could they navigate the path back to joy, or were they destined to repeat the past? The waitress returned, breaking the tension again, oblivious to the storm brewing in their hearts. But Jack felt it. The stakes had never been higher. They were poised on the brink of what could either become a beautiful new beginning or another painful goodbye. "Do you trust me?" he asked, lowering his voice, praying he could pull her away from the edge of doubt. Her silence was deafening. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Sarah's face, like the pause before a storm. Jack felt the weight of her silence pressing down on him. The cafe, once buzzing with laughter and warmth, felt like a fragile bubble that might burst any moment. "Trust?" she echoed, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "Do I trust the same man who walked away when things got tough?" Jack winced at her words. The truth stung like a BS sting. He remembered that day well, the words, the arguments, how everything had spiraled out of control. "I know I messed up," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "But I've changed, Sarah. I've learned. I can't let us fall apart again. Not now." She looked away, her eyes locking on a distant window where raindrops danced against the glass. The chaos outside mirrored the turmoil within her. "Jack, things have changed. I've changed. What if I'm not the person you think I am?" A part of him wanted to argue, to remind her of the shared memories, the adventures, the plans, the dreams. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned in closer, determined to connect. "Maybe you've become stronger, but I know there's still that spark in you. That light. We can rekindle it, Sarah. But we need to be honest with each other first." Her gaze returned to him, and he could see the struggle etched deep in her expression. She opened her mouth to speak, then hesitated again, caught in the web of her own thoughts. "It's not just about us, Jack. I have responsibilities now." The weight of her words hung heavy, smothering the atmosphere. "Responsibilities?" he repeated, confusion taking hold. "Responsibilities to who?" She hesitated, biting her lip as she chose her words carefully, almost as if she was preparing for a battle. "To my family, to my job. There are expectations I can't ignore. And there's someone else." The air around them shifted, a cold breeze snaking through the cafe as if coming from a different world. "Someone else?" The words felt foreign on his tongue, an icy realization creeping in, deep-rooted doubt, jealousy, and fear all converged. "Are you seeing someone?" She glanced away, her fingers fidgeting with the tablecloth. "It's complicated. I don't expect you to understand. You left Jack felt his heart clench tightly. I left, Sarah, but I'm back now. Can't we at least have an honest conversation? The din around them faded into a distant hum as the noise of the cafe was drowned out by the roaring silence they created between them. Finally, she looked up, her blue eyes shining with unshed tears. What if I'm happy now? What if I've finally found a way to move on? Happy? The word knotted in his chest. Is that what you really want? She straightened up, determination replacing the earlier hesitation. It should be what I want. But, even thinking about you makes everything so confusing. With each passing second, the hope he clung to felt like sand slipping through his fingers, yet he couldn't give up. Then let us sort through the confusion together. Let us take a chance. You, me, and whatever, or whoever else is in the way. We can figure it out. Just as the moment reached a peak of raw emotion, the laughter of children filled the air again, pulling them back into reality. Jack watched as a small boy, excitement, and innocence radiating off him, skidded across the floor and bumped right into a table. Are you okay? Someone asked, laughter breezing through. The boy nodded, holding up a puppy the people at the table had just been fawning over. The pup squirmed, and the joy was contagious. Jack felt a flicker of hope reignite, even amidst the chaos of their conversation. Sarah, he started again, though she held up a hand to pause him. Jack, she whispered, the sincerity in her voice crystal clear, we've already suffered so much. Do we really want to dive back in, relentlessly risking it all? The question hung in the air, swirling with the laughter and life around them, teasing some uncharted future. Jack took a deep breath, searching for the right words to navigate this new terrain. Sometimes risking everything is the only way to find out what truly matters, he finally replied, his mind racing at the weight of the decision before them. But before Sarah could answer, her phone buzzed again, flashing an unknown number on the screen. She glanced at it, her eyes sparking with concern. What if it's important? She murmured, her mind visibly torn. Jack's heart raced, wondering what lay beyond that call. Would it pull her away, back into the shadows of her responsibilities? Or could this be another piece of the puzzle leading them into the light? Sarah answered, her voice trembling anew, as if reality were moving in slow motion. Jack's heart raced with a mixture of dread and anticipation. What was she about to choose? And where would that choice take them both? Jack watched, his breath caught in his throat, as Sarah answered the call. Her voice wavered, uncertain and hesitant, echoing his own internal turmoil. He could see the way the smile faded from her face, replaced by a furrow of worry. Each beat of the conversation seemed to stretch endlessly, heavy with unspoken implications. Hello? She said, her tone shifting to a professional flatness that felt so foreign to Jack. It felt like a barrier that pushed him further away, and in that moment, he wished he could reach through it. The lingering joy from the laughter around them faded. He could barely hear the words on her side, but the variations in her tone told him all he needed to know. Relief, annoyance, then outright frustration. Each inflection pulled at the seams of his heart. Jack leaned forward, willing the world around them to quiet down, to amplify Sarah's voice instead of drowning it in the chatter of the cafe. As she hung up, her shoulders slumped slightly, and Jack's heart sank in tandem. It was my boss, she said, her voice soft, defeated. There's a project that I need to oversee, and it starts tomorrow. I have to go. What about us? The question tumbled out of him, raw and desperate. He felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. What about this conversation about everything? I don't know, Jack, she said, her eyes darting to the door like an escape route. I can't think about that right now. Her gaze lingered on the bustling cafe, on lives intertwined with laughter and love, while their own hung heavy with unsaid words. Jack's heart thudded painfully as he took in the sight of her withdrawal, the way she seemed to draw into herself, a fortress against his hope. Sarah, please. I need to know if there's a chance for us. Just give me something. His voice dipped lower, barely above a whisper. The urgency was overwhelming, blending with the hope that perhaps fate had colluded just long enough for their eyes to meet again. She met his gaze, a flicker of something fear, desire, or regret passing between them. I need time, Jack. Time to figure out what this all means, what I want. Jack felt the weight of her words crush down upon him. They were the same words again, the inevitable barrier that overshadowed their intimacy. The clamoring sounds around them rebounded off the walls, but deep within him, only silence marred his thoughts. Time? He repeated, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. What if it slips away? Favoring a slight sigh, Sarah shrugged, her own frustration evident. I can't just walk away from everything, not again. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, taking a breath he didn't know he needed. He had to understand her hesitation, but it was tearing him apart to watch her hesitate. All he wanted was clarity. With a hesitant step, she stood, smoothing her skirt as if it could gather the resolve she felt slipping away. I have to go, she said softly, regretful tears threatening to break free. Wait, he said, and she paused, her back still to him. The sight of her like this, a woman balancing on the edge of her responsibilities and emotions, gnawed at him, pushing him to voice one last question that hovered like a dark cloud. What happens if I let you go? Will it be the end, or just the beginning? Her shoulders stiffened, and the weight of Jack's question hung there, as precarious as the raindrops outside. He watched her shoulders shake as she fought against her feelings, torn. I don't know, she whispered. As she turned to leave, Jack felt his heart drop. Sarah. She paused again, and just before stepping out, he said, just promise me when you find your answer, you'll come back. Her eyes locked onto his, and in that moment, the chaos seemed to still, caught between seconds ticking away. I will, she said, almost a promise, almost a challenge. With a sharp breath, she slipped out the door, the bell chiming softly behind her as the rain outside picked up. Jack sat frozen, wrestling with the weight of unvoiced emotions swirling within him. What had he just unleashed? And as dread and anticipation twisted in his stomach, he wondered, how long would he have to wait for her to find her answers? Jack sat in the cafe, the aftershock of their conversation echoing through his mind. Empty cups cluttered the table, remnants of moments shared and yet to come. He felt the weight of her absence heavier than anything he could lift. Outside, the rain poured down, each drop tapping rhythmically against the glass, an unpredictable measure of time slipping away from him. He glanced around at families entwined in laughter and connection. Each smile echoed in his heart, a reminder of what his family had once been and what they could be again. Would Sarah return with clarity? Could he wait, with nothing to grasp but a promise? Those thoughts churned within him like shadowy clouds, dark yet full of potential energy. After what felt like an eternity, he finally stood, pulling himself away from the memories, pushing through the door and back out into the drenched world. The air smelled fresh, a reprieve from the heaviness of uncertainty. As he walked towards his car, the rain washed over him, cleansing his anxious heart, giving him a clarity he desperately needed. His phone buzzed again, the familiar tone fostering a flicker of hope, and he nearly skipped a beat. But it was just Tyler checking in. How'd it go? The message read, and Jack paused before typing back. Complicated, he finally replied. But I'll figure it out. He could sense Tyler's nod through the screen, understanding the weight behind those words. And somehow, Jack realized it wasn't just about him and Sarah. It was a journey he had to embrace, for the sake of his children Emma, Max, and Lily, who deserved to know their father was unafraid to chase happiness, no matter how messy it got. He climbed into his car, heart pounding, thoughts swirling. What would he even tell the kids? As he drove home, he could only imagine their questions, their hopeful eyes seeking assurance. When he finally opened the door, their laughter welcomed him. The sight of his children lounged, delightfully chaotic, filled the space with warmth. "Daddy!" Lily squealed, brightening the room. Jack knelt, arms outstretched, embracing them all. "Hey, my little stars," he said, heart swelling with love. "Guess what? What do you think about a pizza night?" "Yes." They cheered in unison. Jack felt the moment wrap around him tightly, holding him in this sanctuary of innocence. As they gathered around the table, making their makeshift dinner, he filled their night with stories of knights and dreamers, like the ones he shared with Sarah. He could feel their excitement, the bond they shared, sparking in the air. Later, as the kids fell asleep, Jack found himself gazing at their peaceful faces. This was his true treasure, more valuable than any dollar figure or material possession. But was he enough? What if they needed more than just a dad? Jack paced as quiet reflections filled the night. With every step, he realized he needed to be transparent not just with Sarah, but with his children. They deserved to understand the complexities of love, even when it danced on the edges of ambiguity. The morning greeted him with a sense of renewed energy. After breakfast, Jack gathered the kids and sat them down. "You know I love you guys, right?" he started, their blue eyes locking onto his with rapt attention. "Of course," Emma chirped. "But I want to explain something." He took a deep breath, tracing the words carefully with their innocence reflected in every line. He relayed the tale of a brave knight, true love, courage, and the quest for happiness. "Sometimes, love means you have to fight for what matters, even if it's hard," he concluded softly, watching their expressions shift from confusion to understanding. "Are you fighting for Sarah?" Max asked, his gaze earnest, seeing through to Jack's heart. Jack smiled, feeling a swell of pride. "I want to, buddy. She makes me happy. I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but it's worth trying." "You should tell her," Lily piped in, her voice small yet filled with unwavering conviction. "Tell her she's part of our family, too." Their innocence struck a chord deep within him, and Jack knew they were right. He didn't want to just fight for Sarah, he wanted to fight for all of them, this family dynamic that held the potential to grow anew in love and laughter. And so, with newfound determination, he picked up his phone. There was no waiting. He saw through the darkness of uncertainty before him not just a desire for Sarah but an incredible promise for all of them. "I'm ready," he whispered, his fingers moving across the screen. "Hey, Sarah," he typed. "I believe in us, in our connection. I want to work through whatever stands in the way. You matter to me. Let us talk." With his heart in his throat, he pressed send. It was the first step, a leap of faith into the unknown, trusting it could bear fruit. As he planned the future, the sun poured into the room, bathing them in light. In that illuminating moment, Jack understood, love was not just a destination, it was a journey they could navigate together. As he heard laughter erupt from the kids in the other room, he knew this was the beginning not just for him and Sarah, but for an entirely new chapter. They would create a family that thrived on connection, resilience, and endless love. Jack smiled, feeling hope flood his heart once more, ready to embrace uncertainty because it was inside that very uncertainty that miracles often lay. And right then and there, in the warmth of laughter and the sunlight streaming through the window, Jack finally felt the vibrant pulse of life around him, reminding him that he was never alone. Their journey had just begun. Now, it's your turn. If you felt the transformation in Jack's story, don't wait another second to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this uplifting content alive. Comment your heartfelt reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation unfold. This is the moment to be part of our community. True fans know how vital your support is.